We are DKKS Productions.
My name is Ian F. Scott.
My name is Charlie Cannon. I've known this man right here since about middle school, unfortunately. And we've had this idea for a very long time. We wanted to create a channel or a page, so we could use it as a creative outlet. We have a lot of ideas for skits, short films, movie breakdowns. We live in Atlanta. We're both two actors. This is sort of one of the biggest film hubs in the entire world at this point. So we're going to be giving some insight about what it's like to live in this city as an actor, trying to make a name for yourself, and just different things about the city in general, because Atlanta's pretty awesome.
One of the best things about living here is that there is no shortage of work that comes along, and there's always opportunity. And even when you're facing a global pandemic, you can do stuff like this and make your own stuff. So tonight, we are going to be breaking down a movie called Baby Driver, which came out in 2017 and is directed by Edgar Wright. We're going to be breaking down the acting, we're going to be breaking down the writing, the cinematography, directing, pretty much just taking the film as a film and breaking down why we love it, what makes the film so great, and why you should watch it. And of course, if you haven't seen Baby Driver, there are going to be some mad spoilers in this video. So, what I want you to do is to grab a cigar, grab a drink, and buckle the F up, Buttercup. Colorado Gold, Rocky Mountain Straight Bourbon Whiskey. You excited to try that?
Absolutely, yeah. I've been looking forward to this for a little bit since you sent me that Snapchat of it. Anyway,
let's just take a moment to admire the color of this perfect looking bourbon.
Mm-hmm.
There's a very nice amber color to it. It's extremely clear. You see how pure that looks?
Definitely.
So let's crack this bitch open.
Beautiful.
And
Drink it. That's beautiful. I love the decanter.
yes.
Nice.
All right.
Good lord.
That smells good.
Indeed it does.
All right.
All right.
DKKS.
The DKKS.
Sláinte.
That is smooth as butter with a slight burn.
Yeah, that's
Afterwards.
that's good.
That's some good stuff right there.
That is. There's a little bit there's a little bit of sweetness after.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah. Initially, I didn't even taste much of anything, and then afterwards, I'm still tasting a little bit.
That's good.
For those of you who have not heard of Colorado Gold, go out and get yourself a bottle. Try it out. It's delicious. I can tell you off that one taste. It's very good. I've never had it or heard of it, so.
It is very good. And today, our smoke of choice is a La Torin. It's called a Dirt Torpedo. It's chocolate flavored. So
We're probably gonna end up eating it. At least
probably.
Sky will.
I know I will. I like chocolate.
Initial review.
Cigar is sweet.
Tasty. Yeah, I would even say that.
Yeah.
And it's coming undone.
And it's coming undone. And it was a bitch to light. So as good as they are, I don't know if I'll smoke this again.
Yeah, I probably won't.
But anyway, so Baby Driver. It's an extremely, I would say it's a simple movie, but it is done in such a way that, on a filmmaking level, it seems kind of complex.
Oh, exactly. Especially with the editing.
Mm-hmm. I was thinking.
Yeah, I know we're going to dive into the editing a little bit more later in the discussion, but it's just absolutely insane some of the stuff they're able to do with the music and with the action itself.
The use of music is something I've wanted to talk about in this movie.
And I would agree with my initial thoughts after I first saw Baby Driver. It is a very simple movie. You don't leave the theater feeling like you didn't just experience something, though. Like, it is truly an experience. Like, just what they're able to do, it's phenomenal. And sometimes the best movies are simple ones.
I agree.
Go ahead and throw that out there.
I was thinking so music, if you've seen it, music plays a huge part. It is an integral part of the story to this movie. The main character is always listening to music, and it's not music that was composed specifically for the movie. It's just like famous songs that they brought in and used, and it's always the right song at the right moment. It always gets you feeling the way that the movie is supposed to make you feel, and I mean that's just talent, you know, like
Really?
putting together a movie like that in post, pre,
Yep.
and during production.
And props to Edgar Wright. This really is, it's his baby in a sense. You know, this was, I think he'd been working on this for an incredibly long time. I know he gave up Ant-Man to film this. So the dedication that he put into this movie is very evident, and it pays off in a spectacular fashion. And we'll get a little bit more into the soundtrack, I guess, when we get into the editing a little bit. But yeah, those are the initial thoughts that I walked away with when I first watched the film. Yeah.
Also, Elgort, who was a relatively unknown actor. He had done Paper Towns.
He did. No, it was Fault in Our Stars.
Fault in Our Stars.
Yeah, he may have been in Paper Towns.
I always
I
get
never
those two
saw it,
mixed up.
so-
I've never seen him either. But yeah, Fault in Our Stars, and there's just like a realness about him. Even though the movie is, I'd say the movie's stylized.
Definitely.
Yeah, and so even though the movie is stylized, you very much buy the world that he's living in. It's like
Right.
it's not unbelievable that something like this would happen in real life, but it's done in a way that makes it humorous and somewhat kind of like self-aware in a way. It's like, no, we know this isn't real, but like we're just gonna show you a good time and
Exactly.
like let you get a bond with these characters.
Exactly, and also touching off Ansel Elgort. I don't know about you, but sometimes, and I guess it's probably just the more experience we've had as actors and in the theater world and in the film world and whatnot. If I'm watching a film, oftentimes I'll think about what a character looked like on a script and what the actor did with it. So I like to think about the character of Baby, because I imagine he was written almost exactly how he was portrayed. Ansel doesn't have to do much to pull that off. He does very little while doing a lot at the same time.
He's a very controlled actor,
Right.
and that's like commendable
Mhm.
in our field, to be given a role that might be really tough to pull off, but not to do too much, and know when to hold back and know when to push it, and that's just what he does, and that's why
Yep.
he's so good in that movie. It's John Barenthal in that movie. He's in 3 scenes and is a very memorable part of that movie. And I remember watching it because I had seen him in The Walking Dead, and
Was he Punisher by that
I don't
point?
think Punisher had started by this.
I don't
at
think
this
so
point.
either.
But I was impressed with him in The Walking Dead, and he's such an underrated actor. I feel like because
Definitely.
anytime he's in something, you just remember him.
Jesus
He's-
Christ. Yeah.
He has. There's just something. Everything about him, you just like.
He
oh,
brings
that-
this intensity to each character. I
That's
would
it.
say.
He
Yeah.
brings that intensity.
If you haven't, go watch Daredevil on Netflix. It's first of all, it's just a sensational show. But John Barenthal comes in season 2 as the Punisher, and he just gives one hell of a performance. I'm talking about every scene. This guy brings it all to the table, and he has a very small part in this movie. Like he said, only about 3 or 4 scenes, but he really does shine in those scenes. I feel like he steals them in a sense, and I would have liked to see more of him in the movie, but I understand why it didn't make sense really storytelling wise. But
Well,
he's a standout.
I love how they addressed it in the movie. In the last time you see him in the movie, he says, "Well, folks, if you don't see me again, it's because I'm dead."
Yep.
And then you never see him again. So
There you go.
it's kind of like
Yeah.
a little joke that they threw in there. I think.
Yeah. And he's another character that when I'm watching this, I'm like, I wonder what this looked like on script. How would I have approached this? I don't think I could have approached it as well as John Barenthal. He really hit the nail on the head with his performance.
He
there.
does. There's one scene when he's talking with Baby about just like his life as a criminal, and he's like, you're not in it all the way yet, but one of these days your hands are gonna get dirty, and you're gonna find out that shit doesn't wash off in the fucking sink.
Yeah.
And that kind of like foreshadows the events of the movie, which is
Exactly.
very good writing.
Incredible writing. He's a good segue into the events that unfold later in the film. I'll say that. The other actor I feel like would be I don't know the word. Another actor that we should probably talk about is John Hamm,
Yeah, I was just
who
thinking that. Just
we're on that same wavelength. It's a little strange sometimes. It's very strange all the time.
oh hello.
And his ride just got here.
Ow!
So John Hamm in this film, I feel like he's one of the more likable characters for the bigger part of the film.
Oh yeah,
Because out of all the criminals that he works with, you got, well, we'll get to Jamie Foxx in a second. But they're not likable. John Bernthal's not. Even Baby Doll, is it Baby Doll? Is that his girlfriend? What does he call her?
Deborah?
But what's the name that she goes
Oh,
by?
Darling.
Darling.
John Hamm's girl.
Yeah, so she's even a little bit unlikable with some of the things that she says.
Mm-hmm.
But John Hamm plays a man with some bad anger issues, and God bless that man. He gets that across pretty easily, I would say. Even when he's not angry, you can kind of sense that tension behind the facade.
There's a really great scene where John Hamm does not do much of anything. They're in a diner, and Jamie Foxx is definitely controlling the scene. But Jamie Foxx's character's Bats. He's going into details like what he thinks John Hamm, whose name is Buddy in the movie, he was like, this was your past, this is what happened, blah blah blah, and John Hamm just sitting there with, jaw clenched, very quiet, and he doesn't have an outright like very angry look on his face, but you can just tell that in Buddy's mindset, he just wants to jump across the table and kill Bats, because Jamie Foxx has already caused like so much shit to just happen, and this is just like the icing on the cake, but they can't do it because they're in public, and it's a great power scene. Like, it's someone who's like is used to being on top in his life is now being just like punched in the face over and over and over again by Jamie Foxx.
Yep.
And it's wonderful. I love this movie. There are a lot of things about this movie that I like, acting wise specifically.
Right, and speaking off the what you just said about the intensity in that scene between the two of them, I feel like any scene that Jamie Foxx is in is incredibly intense. Props to Jamie Foxx.
I feel uncomfortable every time.
Right, I got a phone call from my mom after she first saw this movie, and she loved it, of course. Me and her have very similar tastes in films, but she talked about how he's one of the most vile characters you've seen in like a wide theatrical release in a long time, and he doesn't even have to do that much to make you buy that. Yep. Besides the way that he acts, there's a scene where him and Baby are in the car, and he's like, "Did you make me miss that shot?"
Yeah.
And he's doing that. There's the diner scene. There's the scene at when they're meeting at the barbecue, essentially.
Yeah.
Just everything that he does in that film is really well done as well.
Yeah, so building off of like Jamie Foxx's character, we never get a backstory on him at all. We don't know where he comes from, but like Baby, we know where he comes from. To a certain degree, we know where Buddy, John Hamm's character comes from, and his girlfriend. Well, not so much with Kevin Spacey's character, but he's not really a character that you really care to know about the backstory of. But there's just something really sinister about like what happened in this guy's life to make him so fucked up,
right?
Because like he's one of those characters that will have no qualms about killing you at all,
right?
Like, and he'll just tell you, it's like, yeah, I'll kill you, and then I won't lose a wink of sleep over it.
Yep.
But it's just, he's terrifying, and he doesn't like scream or yell a whole bunch, just the way he carries himself and the acting choices that Jamie Foxx made on the day. I want to be Jamie Foxx.
You want to be him?
Yeah.
Now, so you were talking about his demeanor about, I can kill you, not lose a blink of sleep over it. So his character, while being very vile and nasty and ruthless, it also isn't that far from the reality. I've met a lot of people out here in Atlanta that sort of behave the same, have that same sort of mindset. But yeah, it's a very real character. You meet this type of person living around the city sometimes, and I thought he brought it to life very well, because another thing that actors often do if they need to get angry or if they need to show that they're feeling some sort of emotion besides just normalcy is they'll raise their voice, they'll change, they'll scream, essentially.
They'll scream and yell
or whisper. Leo DiCaprio whispers a lot, but he's still the man. Shout out to Leo.
And then like talking kind of about like that emotion is, going through acting school, we always heard that you had to play more than one color. when you're feeling a certain emotion, you can't just, like, if you're angry, you can't just scream and yell and, you know, be angry. You have to find those moments where you can turn it up and scream and yell, and then find the moments, because that's what good acting is, finding the moments to play the opposite and kind of like get quiet and sinister and interchange those moments with the loud ones.
Exactly.
And
because I feel like it makes the loud ones all that more effective
yeah,
when they do
it
that.
does. It does, because if you just scream and yell the entire time, then you're just screaming and yelling, and no one's gonna be intimidated, because they're like, this is
Oh,
what
he
I'm
does this
getting
all the time.
Yeah, like this is what he does all the time. But you know, you start off the scene quiet, and like halfway through, just get really, really fucking loud,
Mhm.
and then pull it back, and then get really, really loud again, and then pull it back, and then end on like a somewhere in like a happy medium,
Right.
I guess. And people are just like, what did I just watch? That was incredible.
Exactly. And I can appreciate when actors can do the opposite of what the instinct might be when you first read the script. Like the scene in the diner when he's talking to John Hamm, like, let me guess, you probably did this, you probably did this. I could see a lot of actors taking that script or taking those lines and doing it sort of like, let me guess, you probably did this and you probably did this, and then
Like
you
a
ran
Sherlock
away with your favorite
Holmes.
stripper.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But a really talented actor can take that and sort of push it in a direction that someone might not do off the rip, you know, and that shows that they put the work in, and it really comes across when you're watching the film. It adds an extra layer, I believe.
Oh, without a doubt, without a doubt. And so I want to talk like a little bit about Kevin Spacey.
Yeah, I was wondering how we're going to segue into
So this movie came out like right before everything came out about Kevin Spacey, and now we all know he's a creep. But damn,
and a serial killer.
Yeah. But damn, the man is a talented actor.
Yeah, there's no doubt.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to meet him at all, but I mean, in this movie, he's so, I don't even know like how to describe it. It's like, it's an unrealistic dialogue that Kevin Spacey has, but Kevin Spacey is like actor enough to pull it off and make you be like, yeah, I buy that someone talks like that.
Exactly. That's my baby.
That's my baby.
And he comes up. His story arc is one of the more interesting ones to me as well. I wouldn't say that his character by any means is a standout, and I wouldn't say that he's a standout performance in the film. I do like when he's on screen. I feel like he does a good job. We're a little bit biased towards Kevin Spacey, I believe, because we love pretty much everything he's ever done, and we always have. Like,
and I think a lot of that's because like when we started getting into movies and like recognizing good acting, Kevin Spacey was in a lot of the movies that we watched.
Seven, The Usual Suspects. I mean, there's a lot more, but those are the two.
American Beauty.
American Beauty, yeah, fantastic film.
Powerhouse movie.
He might have been nominated or won an Oscar for that one, but I can't recall off the top of my head. But his character specifically in this movie, you meet him at first, and you're kind of neutral on him, then you kind of grow to hate him because he brings baby back into the lifestyle. At what's the name of that restaurant? Do we know the name of that restaurant?
Dude, I
Because it is an actual Atlanta restaurant.
I can never remember the name of it because
It's the finest wining and dining in all the city.
Yeah.
That's all that matters. And maybe we can give a shout out to them in the bio of this, because I've looked them up before, and they are in Atlanta, out of my price range for now. But there's the scene at that restaurant when he pretty much demands baby come back into that lifestyle where he's gonna kill Deborah.
That is such a good scene. Like talking more about writing than actual acting in this one. Pretty much. So you know, if you haven't seen the movie, baby at one point unknowingly stole a whole bunch of merchandise from Kevin Spacey by boosting a car that was full of it. And Kevin Spacey's character says he was just kind of like watching it happen because he was just so impressed. And then tracked him down, and I know what you're thinking.
Yeah, I know.
I'm not going to say it.
The way that he says the impressed line kind of looks a little bad now.
It did not. The line did not age well. Let's just say that.
No, it didn't.
But he's like, baby and him are even now. Like baby's paid off his debt, and now he's out, and they've like baby said like I'm done. And they're out at dinner, and Kevin Spacey pays for their dinner and brings them out, which I think is just like a powerhouse move. It's like, yeah, I just paid for your dinner, and now I'm gonna fucking bring you back in, even though I know you don't want to. And he says, your waitress girlfriend, she's pretty cute. Let's keep it that way.
Yeah.
And he doesn't like outright threaten. Well, I mean, I guess he does, but he doesn't say the words, I'm going to kill your girlfriend if you don't do this for me. It's an intimidation tactic, and it's brilliant.
Brilliant. And then by the end of the movie, you kind of like him. Like, he does some honorable things. I like watching dishonorable characters do honorable things. I feel like that always adds like kind of an element that makes you feel
you
good.
can relate to them. You can
Yeah.
get on a level with them, I guess.
And of course, as soon as he does an honorable thing, he gets
He bites it.
he gets fucked up pretty
Yeah.
bad. I would say.
Pretty bad. By none other than our boy John Hamm.
We've come full circle.
And yeah, so now that we've talked about a little bit about the acting and like why we think it's a powerhouse film.
Yep.
Writing wise, we've dabbled a little bit. This movie's just smart. It's just it's a feel good movie, yet doesn't have a happy ending. Really, I mean, like, it's not like a bad ending.
Right.
But
It's kind of. I feel like that's almost kind of left up for interpretation. That final shot and scene. I don't know if that's him getting out of prison actually, or if that's sort of like a fantasy.
Because I've wondered the same thing. Because earlier in the movie, there is a fantasy about him walking out and seeing his girlfriend Debbie, and like he's kind of like thinking about that, like fantasizing of like what life is going to be when he gets away from this place.
Right.
And then he's captured by the cops for the crimes that he's committed. Like, again, spoiler alert, sorry, but
We warned you in the beginning.
Yeah,
What are you still doing here?
He's sentenced to 25 years in prison with a parole hearing after 5 years, and then the movie ends in black and white, very much like the fantasy earlier in the movie where he walks out and kisses her, and they get into a car and leave.
Yep.
And I like to think that that's 5 years later, him finally getting to live his life and be free of all this. But yeah, like, it's not like the guy that you're rooting for the entire time doesn't necessarily win at the end, and I think that's a brave move for any movie. But when it's done right, it's done well. I think.
And I would describe Baby Driver overall as a feel-good movie. I always feel good when I watch this movie. It's a fun time, and I would imagine that the ending is reality, just because I think it sticks with the overall feeling of the rest of the movie. I just like to think that personally. Edgar Wright, if I'm wrong,
Yeah, maybe we're
just keep it to
optimists.
yourself. Just keep it to yourself.
Yeah,
I don't want to know.
It's not necessarily like a happy ending because the good guy doesn't win.
He doesn't get away or anything. They don't ride off into the sunset together.
Yeah, and like that's not something you really see a lot because I don't know if like writers are just scared to go there, or maybe they're just really smart because like they just know it's just like maybe like I can't pull this off in a way that would do it justice. So when it's done, and which is why it's done very rarely, it's done really well. And,
the scene of him getting arrested, I would say, is actually kind of beautiful because
it is.
in the scene, you hear snippets of his mom singing this song throughout the entire film. In that scene, you finally hear like the actual version of it, and so it adds this layer of emotion because his mom died when he was really young, but he still has this connection to her, of course, and just emotions are overflowing. It's beautifully shot and all that.
And it's like I'm not any expert on like what techniques what they did with saturation or the exposure or anything for that.
Mm-hmm.
But the entire movie is just the warmth of it is very, very cool.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean that in like terms of like what the temperature looks like. You can, when you know what you're looking for, you can see when a movie is warm, how it looks in terms of how it looks. The aesthetic is warm or cool, and Baby Driver is very, very, very cool aesthetic. There's a lot of blue tints in the movie, and it makes it very pleasing to the eye. Like, I enjoy watching it because it just kind of, I don't know.
It makes you feel good.
It makes me
It
feel
evokes
good.
an emotion out of you that-
and that's what movies are supposed to do. That's what art is.
Exactly. I was actually having a discussion about this with a mutual friend of ours recently, and he was talking about how he feels like movies these days, and this could be a whole video on itself, me talking about this, but I'll make it as fast as possible. Movies these days are so focused with getting a point across or trying to. It has like an agenda that is trying to push on you a little bit, and you see it a lot in Oscar nominations and Oscar winners. That's usually the kind of film that gets recognition there. But at the end of the day, I kind of look back at the tagline of the School of Stage and Screen where we went to college at. We're storytellers. At the end of the day, that's what it is. You want to watch a story unfold, and that I feel like films have kind of strayed from that for a long time. I feel like Baby Driver does that really well. And I feel like the formula it follows, you were talking about, it's simple writing. It is fairly simple writing, and I feel like the writing itself is not what makes the film as spectacular as it is, although it is a great story.
Mm-hmm.
But it really does just take you on a ride, and the combination of the writing, acting, editing, it's beautifully done.
I agree. And the directing. I mean, there's just, sometimes I watch a movie and I wonder, like, how much of that was the actor? Obviously, the actor shows up and they did their work, and, they have built the character that they have read on the script, but people who really know the character are the writers.
Mm-hmm.
The people who write it, because, as a writer, you have to, like, kind of, like, delve in and you have to justify that character existing. Anytime that a new character is introduced, you introduce a new set of wants and needs.
Mm-hmm.
And so you need to, like, what do they want? What do they need? And then through that, you kind of figure out who they are. So the actor can read the words, and they can read the character description, and they can talk to the writers. But I mean, the director has to know all of that. He needs to know, like, where the actor has taken the character, where the character's supposed to be, and, like, finding out a way to make it happen to the director's vision.
Right.
And film and theater and just acting, storytelling,
Right.
in general, it's one huge collaborative process. No one person just brings it all.
Right.
You have to build and build and build, and that is how a good movie is done. And I think there's a lot of communication and open communication that was done between the writers, the director, the actors, and
Right.
everyone.
I would agree with that entirely. And, I know I feel like that's sort of a subjective approach, although I feel like it should be objective, because you do have actors who will completely refuse to take notes. They come into the first rehearsal, or they come into the first day of filming knowing exactly what choices they're going to make with different parts, which might conflict with the director a little bit. I feel like that always comes through in a film as well, when you can kind of sense that there was some contradicting ideologies, and
One person wanted one thing, the other person wanted the other.
right. And then on the other hand, you also have directors who come in with a vision, and if the actor makes a choice that isn't exactly the vision that this director had, then you come into the realm of line readings and
Just
over-directing.
creative differences, and I mean, as soon as that happens, I mean, it's just doomed, I think.
Mhm. It's sort of like any other job. You got the boss, and then you have the employees. The employees know how to do their job, and the way it works is you work with the boss a little bit. They can point you in the right direction, but then you also have bosses that micromanage. And
If it's not done my way, it's wrong, and
right,
you can't do that with film.
yeah, along the same lines, you have directors that micromanage and micro-direct, and it doesn't really turn out well. I don't
'Cause it's
believe
not
personally most of the time, and it's a kind of a toxic work environment.
Because it's not a collaboration.
Exactly.
And I mean, we can go on and on about why you need such strong communication and collaboration with this stuff. But Baby Driver, I mean, you watch it and you can just tell that everyone was on the same page every single day. The director said, "I want this to happen. Can we make that happen? Like, is that okay with you?" And the actors were like, "Yeah, like, we'll make it happen for you." And maybe I'm guessing, because this has happened to me on set. I brought up ideas and people are just like, yeah, that will work. Let's do it. Let's try it. Try stuff, man.
Exactly. And it feels like with Baby Driver, everything was done very smoothly. There wasn't much like butting of heads, and yeah, like we said, it turned out fantastic. So we've touched on acting, writing. I feel like we should really talk about the editing.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
And cinematography as well.
And the cinematography.
Bill Pope.
Yep, let me see.
Bill, you want to come shoot a couple things with us? We're DKKS Productions. We're located in Atlanta, so just come hit us up.
Have your people get in touch with our...
Yeah,
I'm
we
gonna
got people.
see what else this man's worked on.
We got people.
He did The Matrix, he did The Matrix Reloaded and Matrix Revolutions, which I feel probably get a little too much hate. He did The World's End, also with Edgar Wright, so this was not their first film that they did together.
Okay, cool.
And he did The Matrix, my bad. Yeah, he definitely did The Matrix.
I did.
So, shout out to Bill Pope. Cinematography in all those films is absolutely spectacular.
Yeah, the tracking shot after after the big car chase at the beginning when they were at the bank, when he's going, he leaves like the headquarters, and he walks down the streets of Atlanta to a coffee shop, orders some coffee, gets the coffee, and walks back. And we follow him from the time that he walks out the doors of the headquarters into the coffee shop, gets the coffee, all the way back into wherever they're meeting, and it's all one shot.
Yep.
Which it's called a tracking shot in the film world. It's not easy to pull off. It's all choreographed.
Right. And
Every extra, every car that drives by, every sound that happens, it's all choreographed to a T. It's like a dance.
exactly.
And it's about a 3.5 minute long shot, but it's just like when you watch a tracking shot on camera, it's just so cool.
Right, and I'll say about tracking shots, it's not something that I noticed a lot when I was younger. I don't know about you, but kind of as I've gotten older, and I feel like they've become a lot more popular as well. But as
Thanks, Scorsese.
Yeah, appreciate that. But and also kind of studying film a little bit, you start to notice a little bit more. You notice certain things. And for those of you who have never been on a film set before, just setting up a shot, just a singular shot, that can take a long time. So to plan out a tracking shot, not just with the extras and with the main character and with the music and everything that goes along with it, you also have to think about the path you're going to be leading this camera down in what looks like about like Midtown area. So they had to close off this block for probably a lot amount of time, plan the tracking shots in advance. A ton of work goes into this 1 3-minute shot, and it's just
pre-production on a movie can be like up to a year.
Yeah.
You know, so I imagine, especially since they had to buy the rights to use all these songs, they were in pre-production for a pretty long time.
Right. And
especially with like closing off a city block in Atlanta, that's a big ask. You know, you got to pay a hefty amount.
Yeah, exactly. And I know that Edgar Wright was willing to, bring a lot of money to the table for this. As I mentioned earlier, I think that he dropped out of Ant-Man so that he could focus on this. And I actually read yesterday that, the foot chase scene, like near the end of the movie once they're off out of the cars and everything.
Like Peachtree Center and shit.
Exactly. So that scene, he was told by the producers that there wasn't enough money in the budget to actually film that, so he was going to have to ride a way around it. He took money out of his own paycheck for the film to make sure that scene could be funded. And I think that just shows a lot about Edgar Wright as a person. And when you have a vision and you are pretty determined to see it, or are determined to see this, you're going to do whatever it takes to bring it to life.
Where nothing else is like, you are going to have this in your movie, like
Right.
come hell or high water, it's going to happen.
Right.
And he took a pay cut, and
He took a pay cut in the first place, dropping out of Ant-Man, because Marvel would definitely pay a lot more than
TriStar.
Is it TriStar?
Sony, I guess, yeah.
Sony. Yeah. So the fact that he chose to do this passion project instead of a Marvel film, which would get a lot more recognition, a lot more money coming his way, essentially, I think that shows a lot about him. And the man's a genius, in my opinion. I've been a huge Edgar Wright fan for a very, very long time. And he just continues to deliver every single time, and I appreciate the hard work and effort and sacrifices that he puts into each film.
For editing.
Editing
Editing is not something that I, until recently, have really paid attention to. Even in college, I was just like, yeah, editing's cool. But now I'm watching stuff, and the editor just he had a job.
Yeah.
They had a job. She had a job. Whatever their pronoun is, they had a job to do. And they did it.
Yeah, and I'll say that I think about editing a lot more when it comes to blockbuster films, sort of like Star Wars or Interstellar or something like that. I'd be like, wow, this took a ton of work in post. Like, somebody spending days and nights in front of a computer putting everything together. It's not that often that I watch a film with nothing really extravagant going on, and I'm like, okay, this took a massive amount of time and effort by a very dedicated editor. All right, so there's actually two editors on this film. We have Paul Mackless, I think I'm pronouncing that correct, and Jonathan Amos. I'm not sure exactly what else they've done, but I'm sure they probably worked with Edgar Wright before.
Probably.
And I mean, if you look at the editing in any of his films, he does have kind of like a signature style. If you've watched Shaun of the Dead or Hot Fuzz, you know what I'm talking about. But it's very easy to pick out an Edgar Wright film when you're watching it. I think a lot of it has to do with the editors.
Absolutely. And editing is such a tricky thing to do, because because when you're shooting a scene, you're shooting every actor's coverage, sometimes from multiple different angles, which takes all day, by the way. And you're shooting a master shot from different angles of them all together. So you have to go through hours and hours and hours of footage of the exact same scene just over and over and over again, and pick out the best take of whichever shot that you did that day. So you have to pick out the one out of probably like 10 or 12 great takes that is going to look the best. And even though it might not like be the best acting wise, or like performance wise or whatever, it's the best. Maybe like the lighting was just better in that scene,
Right.
and maybe the sound didn't work in one take, or it didn't. There was one small little hiccup, and the editor is the one who has to catch that and then fix it, and then that's what they have reshoots for as well, which also editors are a big part of. So thanks, editors.
Another thing I like, going back to the whole collaboration thing we were talking about, editors have to collaborate with the director a lot.
Oh.
The director has subjectively, in my opinion, I think the director has the most difficult job overall. You can argue, I guess any position can be incredibly difficult, but the fact that you're essentially the boss on set, you need to be talking with these people, working with them, making sure they are doing their job well, like in how they do it, but also make sure that your vision is known. So editing was a huge part in this film, but I know that Edgar Wright also had a vision for this film. So I'm sure that him and the editors that we just discussed, I'm sure they were working pretty heavy-handedly together to make sure that vision could be brought to life.
I would absolutely agree. And I feel like the editor, should be on set for the most part to, kind of like talk with the director, be like, we can't edit it in the way that you want, or instead of doing this, what if we did this in terms of editing? I can go in and do that and make it look like this. And then the director, has to be, he can't be so stubborn and be like, no, this is my vision and I want it to look this way. It's collaboration, man.
Yep.
If it's gonna look better, if someone has a better idea than you, then take it, run with it, because it could be like career changing.
Yeah. And on the same note, be open to ideas.
Yeah, absolutely.
Don't be so stubborn that you refuse to hear anything else but what you've already envisioned. Because if you really think about because I can be the same way sometimes, just in life in general. If I have, even if it's just a night out, if I have an idea for a night out and I've been thinking, yeah, we're gonna go to this bar, then we're gonna go to this bar, we're gonna do this and this and this. I can sometimes be stubborn if somebody brings up another place. But if you really stop and think about different ideas, sometimes you might find that you'd have a better time doing this, or it would bring your vision to life better if you listened to this advice and took this direction.
Absolutely. There's a lot about this movie that it looks like it doesn't look like any one person was just like, no, we had to do it this way. I feel like every single person's input and ideas was taken into consideration.
Definitely.
And maybe parts of their ideas were used, maybe not the whole overall idea, but like parts, specific little bits were put into place, and that's why this movie is so good.
Right, and I bet it was a great time on set too.
That's another thing I think about. Every time I watch a movie like Baby Driver, I'm just like, man, what was it like in between takes?
Right.
Like what was it like going to set in the morning and leaving at night? Like, because when I'm on set with people I know, with like friends, it's a party. You
Yeah.
just laugh all day, and
Yep.
I like making movies, bro.
Right.
And so I feel like that's kind of how it was. Because once you shoot for like 3 months with a group of people, they're tight.
Oh yeah, you've been through something together. You've experienced something.
You've been like pissed off together. You've had bad days. You've had good days. You've laughed.
Right.
Maybe cried.
Yeah. We did a show together junior year, and the rehearsal process was grueling. But the fact that the cast as a whole went through that together, we still came out on the other side
Yeah, we
a
feel,
lot tighter. I live with one of the castmates that I met sort of doing that show.
Yeah, like we formed like two really tight friendships through that rehearsal with Breyer and Hunkley.
Right, yeah, because that's
Yeah,
when we got really
and-
close to Hunkley as well.
Yeah.
And shout out Cy, my man.
Sigh. I think it's fine. I think you just got to ash it.
There we go. So on the topic of editing, we kind of touched on music a little bit earlier, but I just want to point out how impressive it is how music was used in this movie. Also, if you have not listened to the Baby Driver soundtrack, I don't even care if you've seen the movie. Go listen to that soundtrack.
Bell
It is
bottoms.
boom boom, and the way that the music is edited to fit each scene as well. Forget about it. It's incredible. And not only is the music used incredibly well for different scenes, the main character of Baby he's listening to music all the time because he has tinnitus. Boom, I should have known that. Shout out to all my, what's that show? Chuck. I think Chuck is shout out to all my Chuck fans. Not everybody watches Chuck, but it's the best show ever. But tinnitus is what he has. It's a ringing in the ear, so he listens to music to drown it out all the time. So there's no shortage of song selections in this movie, ranging from all different genres. You got classic rock. They got
Queen.
They got Queen. They got Run the Jewels. Shout out to my ATL folks. It's used really well in each scene, and it creates I feel like it more than anything else creates the atmosphere of the movie.
It does, because it's present in every scene.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that kind of also helps you get like a window into the character of Baby, because even while he's driving, like there's a part where after they're pulling a job, or right before they pull a job, where the people don't get out of the car on the downbeat of the music. So he's like, wait, I gotta start the song again.
Yep.
And rewinds. He's like, okay, go. Because it's just, and that's that's the style of the movie.
Right, and that's also maybe not too realistic for when you're robbing banks. You know,
Like I said,
but,
it's stylized. It's not,
but it's something that you do in everyday life. If you think about it, I know me and him like working out a lot. If I'm listening to music when I'm working out, if I'm about to do a big lift, and I know there's a really heavy part coming up in the song that I'm listening to, I'm gonna wait till that happens to do the lift. Music amplifies everything in our everyday life, and the way that it was translated onto the screen came off.
without a doubt.
So I was talking about the soundtrack for this film, how it's incredible. If you haven't, then go listen to it. Even the songs that I don't listen to on a regular basis, I find myself singing on a regular basis. I do the whole bell bottoms thing all the time to myself in the car. If somebody says the word bell bottoms anywhere, I'm going to be saying bell bottoms, you know? I can't really stress it enough. I feel like I'm beating a dead horse here.
The songs are they're so perfect in every scene. You know what I'm saying?
Right, and I feel like when the script was being written, they knew what songs they wanted for different parts. Maybe not entirely. Maybe they had some ideas they couldn't get the rights to certain things. I don't know about that in depth, but I do know that there are certain parts when him and Debbie first meet, and he's talking about Deborah always look like a zebra, like stuff like that. It's funny and it works well in the script, and then they play the song eventually, and then it's a good payoff. Not a good payoff, but it's nice, you know.
Yeah. So actually, kind of going back to Deborah, who looks like a zebra. What do you think about that actress in that movie?
What's her name? Lily Collins?
Yeah, something like that.
So I will say, when I first saw the film, I thought she was making some weird choices.
I would agree with that.
You know, but having seen the film about 1.5 million times now, I can't picture that character being played any other way. You know, she's very, for lack of a better word, a little ditzy.
Yeah.
And I feel like she was written to be that way. And I can see a complaint about this film being that the female characters aren't written strong enough. In fact, I think I've heard this from people before.
Yeah.
Because think about it, you got Darlin.
There are two.
And
really.
you got Debbie. And neither of them really have a huge impact on significant events in the movie. Well, besides Deborah, of course. But she's more like Baby's motivation. And I would say with Darlin, she has some good moments throughout the movie. Shout out to that actress too. Hit me up, my DMs are open. She doesn't really bring much to the table in terms of plot development until she dies.
Yeah.
She's used as John Hamm's.
Because that's when John Hamm loses his. That's the switch. That's when John Hamm loses his mind, pretty much.
So I can see a bit of legitimacy in that complaint. Of course, it didn't cross my mind when I first saw it, and not really until I heard that. But I could see how somebody with you know, a different background, not being a straight white man, could possibly feel about that.
Yeah, and so I would like to talk a little bit about like, oh, also, you want to know how this movie is really good? The like quality of every just like great movie. Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Right, he is in a scene, isn't he?
He's in a couple scenes.
I'm trying to remember his part in Baby Driver exactly. Is he the one that gets capped by bats?
No, that's JD.
JD.
One of my favorite parts with JD is he has hate tattooed on his neck, but the E is blocked out.
Mhm.
And Baby's like looks at him and says, "Hat." And JD's like, "What?" He says, "Your tattoo says hat." He's like, "Yeah, it used to say hate, but to increase my chances of employment, I had the E removed." And Baby's like, "Yeah, how's that working out for you?" And JD's like, "Who doesn't like hats?
His delivery there is
Who
fantastic.
doesn't like hats?"
I don't know who that actor is. I don't think I've seen him in anything else.
I
but-
think I've seen him in one other thing, but I left my shotgun behind. What? I left my shotgun behind. Not groovy, JD. Not groovy at all.
Yeah. So if you live in Atlanta, you recognize a lot of spots in this film. I've seen them personally. As I mentioned, there's a scene near the end of the film when he's doing a foot chase through the Peachtree Center in downtown Atlanta. I worked in the Peachtree Center for a little while. He runs directly past where I worked. I know he works at Godfather's Pizza in the film.
Which I remember seeing.
Yep, which I've passed several times.
Yeah, I've passed it a couple times, but I
Yeah.
remember you were drunk in my back seat, and
That's
you're
about
like,
right.
wait a minute, that's Goodfellas Pizza. That's in Baby Driver, and I was like, oh shit, you're right.
Was
And
this-
we were just right there?
Was this spring break?
Yeah.
Senior year? Yeah, that sounds about right to me. Then getting drunk in your backseat or being drunk in your backseat. I think it's pretty cool coming from cities not seen that much on a broad scale. Now living in a city that you
That
can
is
recognize
seen,
certain
yeah.
landmarks and different things. You know, I see it a lot in music videos, but you also see it a lot in films, specifically Baby Driver. And I think that it's one of the first films that takes place in Atlanta that comes to the top of my head. That comes like off
Yeah,
the cuff, which is pretty cool. I think Atlanta's a fantastic city.
Atlanta's
so-
a fun city. So, if you're a filmmaker, storyteller, actor, you know, whatever, and you want to try to break into that industry, come to Atlanta.
I feel like there's expressiveness that comes along with this city, not just in film, but in all forms of art. It's particularly the rap scene out here is absolutely insane. Like
Yeah.
I think it's, in my opinion, it's the rap hub of the world. But
It's pretty intense.
I-
There's always just stuff going on. So if you're creative
Right.
at all, come to Atlanta. We'll be happy to have you.
exactly, or if you like chicken wings, because goddamn,
They got some good wings out here.
they got some good chicken wings. All right, so yeah, we wanted to wrap up doing, I guess, some of our favorite quotes from the film.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to think about it for a quick second. Actually, I already have my favorite quote from the film. So if you wanted to
go ahead.
I can't remember exactly the context. Kevin Spacey's talking with Bat.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he says something about
He said, Bat says to, I think Doc is what they call him.
Mhm.
And he says, no, they ain't going to be giving us no trouble. The only way they can identify us is through a Ouija board. And then Doc says,
Yeah.
well, your name only takes 4 letters to spell out.
yeah, but Bat's ain't my real fucking name.
It's over, Leon.
every time I show somebody the film and that scene comes in, I laughed my ass off the first time I saw that part.
Me too. I thought it was great.
But I feel like a lot of the times people don't even get it. You know, for some reason it kind of goes over their head.
Yeah,
it's very subtle.
it is very subtle. It's, like, it's so genius.
yeah,
But
definitely.
yeah, that's definitely one of my favorite parts.
Another one of my favorite quotes, though, while we're still kind of on the topic, is when they're buying the weapons from the what turn out to be cops paid off by Doc, and at a certain point, Batch realizes that they're buying from cops.
Yeah.
He's like, I recognize that dude because he booked me one time or something like that.
The whole scene is they're buying weapons, but like they're buying.
From the butcher shop. And then Bats, once he realizes what he's about to do, he goes, I'm gonna go with this. Yeah,
Because
because I love
like
smoking
smoking pigs.
and just goes off on him. I thought that was actually, it's one of the more badass lines in the whole film,
Oh
honestly.
yeah, it is.
But that scene
Bananas.
entirely is another one of my favorite scenes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But I mean, it's just little things like that make Baby Driver, and like why it's such an enjoyable film because there's just so much attention to detail. and a lot of it is around music.
Exactly.
So it's a great movie. It is a
Yep.
great movie.
I think.
Yeah.
What are some of the takeaways that you, first time you watched Baby Driver? What are the things that stuck out the most, and the things that you still hold with you about the film? That when you first think of Baby Driver, you think this.
Like I remember being really impressed with all the driving scenes. The driving scenes
Right.
were shot really well.
Yeah.
I remember thinking, like the connection that Baby has with his mom is a really big part of the movie.
Right. This
Yeah.
thing is just.
And would you say that Doc? No, I mean I don't know. Would you say the Doc is some sort of like?
Father figure.
I would say like a father figure esque, but he has Joe.
Yeah. True.
Who's his foster dad? But like.
But he kind of looks after Joe instead
Yeah.
of Joe looking after him.
And
I
that's,
would-
that's good. That's a good dichotomy. You're
I would
right.
say that he finds a bit of a father figure in both of them. I think the character of Joe is fantastic, by the way. I think it also shows the goodness in Baby himself. The fact that he's taking care of him and he's doing all this stuff for him. He's out there earning all this money and saving it so he can kind of help take care of Joe and
at
pay
the
off his
end,
debt.
There's like a really just like an emotional part where Joe's like, I don't want your dirty money, and Baby's like, I know, but I can't leave you here, and
Right.
gives Joe the money and takes him to a retirement home, and it's just
So yeah, I would say like my main takeaways from the film. I want to kind of flash back to when I first saw it because I've seen it so many times and I feel the same way every time. So I can honestly just go off that. It's a fun film, as we've said many times, but you're gonna go through. You will feel watching this film. There are emotional scenes.
it's not like it's a fun movie overall, but there are parts where you're just like, damn, like I feel for this character.
Right.
Yeah.
And all the stuff we've touched on, the directing, the cinematography, the editing, the acting, everything comes together, and that's what helps evoke those emotions from you. You see it done so well that you can't help but feel when he drops off Joe, or when Kevin Spacey starts to sympathize with him, or at the end of the film. There's just a lot of moments that allow you to feel a certain way. At the end of the day, though, I walk away feeling good. It's a feel-good film.
Yeah, it is absolutely
And
a feel-good film.
it's one that I could honestly, I would say the rewatch value on this thing is just through the roof. Movie you can watch 100 times and never get bored. Of course, with us, we have a ton of films that
we
we
can
can
watch
watch.
the same movie 1,000 times
Right.
for the rest of our lives and never get bored.
Should we give like a ranking for it, like out of 10, like
Yeah,
We're-
do it. 3, 2, 1,
9.2?
Okay.
I almost said 9.5. I was this close. I feel like we're gonna do some breakdowns in the future, though, that for films that I like even more, that I want to kind of save that extra 0.8 for. But this film is, I would put it probably in my top 20 films of all time. I
Definitely
think-
my favorite film of 2017. I'd say solid 9.5 for me.
Right, and I don't think there's anything in the film that takes away those 0.8 points. I just think that there are films that I enjoy more than this that I want to save that extra 0.8 for, in a sense. So
And myself am very liberal with 9.5s, 10s, so you'll hear a lot of those from me.
right. I want to pull the whole like, share, comment, subscribe, because you can already do that, right?
Yeah. Do it. Do it.
Like and subscribe, do it. And I feel like something we want to bring to the table with these breakdowns is you see movie reviews all over the internet. Shout out Jeremy Johns. You see movie reviews all over the internet. I hope that we can add a little insight to behind the camera as opposed to just this movie was good because it did this and this and this. There's a lot of things that I feel like go through our heads that don't go through a lot of people's heads. So just a little insight. But anyway, it was a good time doing this. We're going to be doing some more. If you guys aren't watching, that's cool. We're going to keep making them because
Absolutely.
it's a good time. And we have a lot of movies that we've watched together probably about a billion times each that we want to talk about. Next week,
join himself, myself, and DKKS Productions for our movie breakdown of The Princess Bride. I know you all thought I was going to say The Princess Diaries, which is another one that we'll do some other time. But right now, we're going to do The Princess Bride.
I don't know. Don't get your hopes up for that Princess Diaries breakdown. But yeah, thank you guys for watching, whoever has stuck around to this point. And yeah, we'll see you next time.
Yeah.